This is the Zultan. This was made by Gemmy in around 2005, I believe. I think they made them later than that also. They are discontinued. I just want to make a video for YouTube about the number one problem with these. They're a cool animated fortune teller, but they have some faults. And, you know, they are made in China, and they use some cheap like gears and stuff, and eventually they'll just won't work, or they'll break or whatever. But the number one problem with these is the curtains. Now these curtains are actually supposed to be closed, and what I did was I tied it up because my gearbox did break eventually, and they opened up. They actually, this one curtain went all the way to the left, but this curtain only opened up halfway. And that's usually a number one fault, where they're practically going, and what you should do is either repair the gearbox or what do you call it? Just tie them up like I did. I mean, it's pretty neat for them to open up when you push the button, but let me just give you a little intro here. So when I push the button, the eyes will move. A little too much glare on the light here. See the eyes moving. There's the mouth of this. Let me turn it up a little bit in the back.
Take the chance, or you shall regret it for all of your days. The crystal goes dark. Long live Zultan.
So when I push the button, this curtain's supposed to have been closed, and then it opens up. So it would stay open like this when it was originally working. See, there's the eyes. They are moving. The mouth moves.
Your fears were correct. Take precautions. You know of what I speak. The crystal again darkens, and the great Zultan rests.
And then after this, after it stops, the curtains will then eventually just close. Just the front part. So everything works inside. The head kind of wobbles around, which is nice. Eyes go back and forth. The mouth moves, and the skull moves. A lot of people think that the curtains on the sides open up, but they don't, or close. They just stay open. All right. First thing I want to mention to you is, if you're not mechanically inclined or a little handy here and there, do not attempt to do this. But it's not really that hard. But again, I just tied the curtain up, and I don't want to deal with repairing it right now. But what you have to do is you have to get a 7mm socket. Okay. Now I already have these loose. Now the only thing that you have to worry about is taking this nut out on the top and this nut out in the front. Don't worry about anything else. Now I already have them loose, and then on the bottom here there's an actual nut. I can't go right there. See it? Right there is a nut, and you just put your 7mm socket under there, and you just start turning it. Okay. As you turn it completely off, you'll feel it. This nut is holding in itself in the plastic top. And once that's off, you could just pop this nut off. See how that just comes out? So there's one nut. Let me just put it down here so I don't lose it. I already have these loose, so. And then you go to the other side, do the same thing with a socket, the 7mm, and you just pop that nut out. Okay, make sure you don't lose them, because they're very small. Okay, boom. So when you get that done, now there's a long rod from where you unscrewed the bottom, goes all the way through to the top where that nut goes on. It's just a long metal rod on each side. So what I do is take a small Phillips screwdriver, which you're going to need to take the gearbox off, and you just put it up in here, push down a little bit. Let's see if I can. There. Just push it down just like a 1/2 inch or so. Do it for the other side. Push down. See how I just pushed it down? So it looks kind of like a long bolt, but it's one piece all the way through. So you pushed it down, and see how it's coming out the bottom? And then you just pull it. See how long it is? So this long rod just came out from the one side. Now you have 4 of these on each corner, but you don't need to take off all 4 to get to the gearbox of the curtain, or any of it inside actually right now. But so do the same, put the screwdriver there after you take the nut out, and then push down, and then just pull this rod out. Okay, so there you go. I got 2 rods out from the front. Now the easy part is, let me just push this back so it doesn't fall off the table here. Okay, is you just pull this towards you. See how this thing comes towards you? And just make sure you don't drop it on the ground because there's wires attached to it. Lean it on the table here. See, I still have it plugged in too, and that's okay. So now it's opened up. See that? Now what I want to do is show you. Make sure you don't drop it. Just keep it nice. Hold it at the edge here. See how I'm holding at the edge? And then I'm actually resting it on my chest. And then there's wires here. See the wires? Don't even worry about that right now. You don't need to touch them, but you want to push this thing over more on the table. There, now I have it resting on the table, see? I have the whole front completely resting on the table so it doesn't break these wires. Now, of course, you can unplug it, but I'm going to leave it plugged in for now. All right, here's the gearbox for the curtains. Right inside here, as you can see, it's connected to a plastic gearbox, and inside this plastic gearbox, there's about 6 or 7 gears in there, and a motor. And the motor is just a simple little model motor, like a little tiny one. And these are the 2 wires right here, which I have disconnected right now. I have those disconnected because what I did was, as you could see, I just threaded the right side, because the right side or the left side of the curtain, if you're facing the front, is already secure. After I turn this on, I let it open up, and this opened up completely, and this side was only open up to about here. And then I quickly unplugged it before it stopped talking. So then now this is really tight because the motor stopped halfway through. It was finished. So then I just took the right side and just threaded it up around here on the corner, on the middle part, wherever you could thread it, wherever you could kind of hide it, and it just keeps the curtains open. Now I've taken this thing off, I'd say at least 6 times. Now you have to take a small screwdriver, Phillips, and make sure you get the right size. And there's 1 screw in the back here. Go down, start unscrewing like this. I'm not actually unscrewing it because I don't want to do this. I actually should have filmed this video doing it, but I just want to show you how it's not that hard. You start to unscrew that and get that nut out. And that nut won't automatically come out unless you have a heavy-duty magnet on your screwdriver. But you'll feel it when it's completely loose. And then there's 2 screws. 1 here and 1 there. And then you just take these 2 screws off. So as soon as you take these 2 screws off, they just pop out, put them to the side, little sound effect there, you know what I'm saying? And then this thing will come off. But now what you have to do, the trick, is you have to hold this front against your chest. Okay? So you rest it up against your chest like this. See how I'm resting that up against my chest? So as soon as you take these 2 screws off, this will pop out, but then you have these 2 arms, which are these arms. You have 1 arm here that's going up through the box, and one arm on this side, which opens the curtains. And there's two little screws that are holding these aperture arms, whatever you will call them, onto the gearbox. And you'll see it as soon as you pop this off. Take those two screws off. You'll see. Take a picture of it, when you bring it up to you, because you'll have enough room where this will completely pop off, but it only come up to about here, like a couple inches beyond the front. And then, it'd be nice if you had help. And then you could just pop this in your hand and bring it up a little bit, and then take those two screws off the arms. And you'll see how they go on there. They're real easy. They're not hard at all. Just two little simple screws. As soon as they pop off the screws, then you just pop the arms off the gearbox. One snaps off real easy, and the other one's kind of sitting on a little indent, and that snaps off. And then the whole gearbox comes out. So you'll have the whole gearbox, and then the white gearbox, which is a picture online. If you kind of like Google it and say, how do you fix the gearbox and what gears go bad and blah, blah, blah. Like I said, I don't want to do it for the 7th time because I'm not interested on fixing this right now. But there's 4 screws holding the gearbox inside this box. And again, you just take a small Phillips screwdriver. You'll have the gearbox, the whole gearbox laying on its side this way. Let me just put this back up in here. And everything will be face down, and then there'll be 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. You take those off, and then you just pop the white gearbox completely out of the black casing. Okay, this is just a casing. So as soon as you pop that out, you turn it over, and you can see the picture of what it looks like. The gearbox, it's not going to fall apart. Again, take a picture of it before you take it out, because it's real easy to put back in. And then you'll have 4 more screws, or actually 3 screws on the right side, little tiny black screws, which is the motor housing. As soon as you take those 3 little screws out, pop that off, and no, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. On the back of that white gearbox, there's a little black belt. Let me see if I can find something. Here we go. Okay, it looks like this. There's a little belt on the underside of the white gearbox that's in the black casing, like I showed you, and that just pops off of 2 wheels. One is connected to the motor. This side, I mean, one side's connected to the motor, and the other side's connected to a gear. This one piece that looks like this. And that just snaps off. It just comes right off. No big deal. It's on 2 little wheels. Then you take the 3 little screws off the front where the motor is. It's just a little tiny motor. It's like that round, maybe about 1 inch tall. And completely pull that head off of those after you get the 3 screws off. And none of the gears would fall. You're fine. It's not going to mess it up. And then just put this to the side so you don't lose it. And then I know it's going to be kind of hard me explaining to it, but there's a little tiny gear where the one where this attaches to. Okay, this one side, say this is the motor. This is the motor side that attaches to this side. And then there's another side where it attaches the gear, and it spins a small gear on this side right there. Well, you'll see this little tiny gear, plastic gear, or whatever you want to call the damn thing, I don't know. And it's only like a 1/4 inch wide. That's your problem. That's the problem, number 1 problem, where it goes like up and down like this. It slides on this rod, and it just goes up. Like instead of staying here, it kind of loses its way, and it goes up around in here. And that's what everybody's talking about. Well, if you pull from the bottom, from the back side, you can actually pull this pulley completely out. And then the gear, you reach in that little thing and you get the gear, and you can pick it up with your finger. Boy, I wish I could take this apart again and show you. Maybe I will one day, because it's actually easier to show you piece by piece, because it's really not that hard. Like I could take this thing apart, the gearbox, within 5 minutes and show you exactly done. You know what I'm saying? But that's the problem. But instead of pulling that out, you can leave the gear in there, and some people say put a little sleeve right here so that the little gear mechanism doesn't go up, does not move up like this. It just stays in the down position right here, and the little piece is just holding it from preventing it sliding up and down. Or you could just put a little glue on the very top. Like if the gear stays, if this is the top of the gear right there, just put a little bit of glue on the very top edge. Let it dry before you put it back together, and put a couple little drops again, but don't let the drops fall in the gear. And just on the very, very top, that's all you got to do. And that will prevent it from moving up and down. Okay? What I did, I just took this whole aperture out, and I just made a little scarring right here in the rod. And then when I put it back in and put the gear on, I snapped it in, and it made it like a locking mechanism so it doesn't slide up and down. Okay. And another one thing that goes on these wrong with them is the motor. The motor either dies, it's not strong enough, or the belt is broken on the backside, which is an easy repair. That would be the simplest repair to do. Or the gears are broken inside, you know. But you could buy those on eBay. They sell kits of gears for like $6. They come in the little sizes, the big sizes, the little flat ones. So, even though I have this open up, see, I'm going to open it up for you, see. Well, first of all, let me move this out of the way. All right. So there you go. There's the inside that I'm touching, see. I'm touching that guy. And actually it kind of really smells. It smells of like a high rubber smell, which is, again, made in China. It's probably lead, poison, because, you know, things from China, they don't even give a crap about, you know, stuff that's going to hurt you or the environment. But I already have a lung condition, as you can hear my breathing and stuff. And I'm sure this is not good for me. So, you know, you could touch, I'm touching the hat. You could clean the plastic windows in here. You can straighten up the curtains, you know, if there's any dirt. You know, if you need to repair any of this, you can actually get access to. But it's a whole different thing to get the back of the head. So, but, yeah, I'm going to push the button for you, even though the door's off. Okay. Okay.
The greatness of the all-seeing Zultan is once again required. I delve deeply into your future. What lies ahead? I see. Victory. Celebration. Success. You are a lucky soul. The great Zultan invites you to visit again soon.
Okay. It's funny, with the camera on, you can't really see the yellow, the green in his eyes, because they're lit up white. But you can hear the motor going all back and forth. You know, this thing's been used and abused, I'm sure. So it's probably the next thing that's going to go. And the head moving and stuff like that. Because it's all it is plastic gears. I mean, you know, if it was the 1950s, if they made something like this, you know, of course this would be metal. The gears would be metal. The motor would be stronger. And if you were tech handy, you could actually modify this to last, you know, 100 years if you wanted to, you know. But what's also nice about taking this apart is you can make your own fortune teller box, you know, like, you know, you could get some oak or pine or whatever and build it up, you know, 4 feet off the ground or so, or 5 feet, and just get some satin red velvet blankets or something and just make your own fortune teller, you know. It wouldn't be that hard. Get a nice little mannequin body, use the chest, the arms, just you reuse these and glue these on somehow, and because these don't need to move, you know, and use this guy as your crystal ball. It would be time consuming, but not that bad. But there again, you'd have to be handy, you know. So there you go. The only thing is, I say, if you start to do this, you just take the 2 rods off, like I said. They're on the bottom. They go through. And as soon as you get these off, make sure that, like, you don't want to pull. See, you don't want to pull this out now. See how I'm pulling? You don't want to pull this because you'll pull these wires. And what you'd have to do is take these 3 screws out here. See those 3 screws? And this button push would pull out. And then, of course, you have the button in the front that snaps in. So, and all this is plastic, so you could crack it. These wires are just taped up underneath here. So you'd have to take all these wires off the tape, bring it down, you know, wrap it up in there, and then this whole front unit would just pop off. But then you remember, save the screws. And the only thing when you do this is that eventually you're going to crack the housing because it's old. After so many years, this gets like really dry, this housing. And even if you take your screwdriver and say you want to retighten this, you don't want to tighten too tight. Even this screwdriver is not the right side. See it moving? So you want to make sure you get the right size screwdrivers. And when you start taking them out, see, I don't want to take this one out because I don't want to strip it, because it's definitely not the right size screwdriver. See my screwdriver? But you only want to snug them. Don't over tight. Even with this housing here, you don't want to over tight these screws, and you don't want to over tight the housing or the gearbox screws inside here. So, because they will break the plastic. All right, I'll push it one more time for you guys here. There you go.
Once again, the all-seeing Zultan must consult the spirit world to reveal what is yet to come. You are thinking on something. I see it. The answer is not what you would think, nor hope.
Boy, it does really smell in here like a really, can't explain it. It's like a high plastic, like odor, you know? It's probably really not good for you. I'm going to turn it off. Boom, I just pushed the red button again. So there you go. And then, let me just bring it back here and I'll just show you something. Ugh. Okay, so when you want to, oh, hold on. Let me just do this real quick. There. So make sure you get it up inside. Sorry, guys. Ugh. I'm just going to temporarily just do this so I can show you how to do it. All right, there we go. So when you close this, maybe have some help. Okay? And then you want to take your rod and you want to come up from the bottom. Make sure these corners are tight. See these corners here? Make sure the bottom is set correctly in the casing. Put it in the hole. Okay. Make sure everything's tight. See, I'm not even in there yet. Yeah. Sorry about the camera. It's hard for me to do it with one hand. Okay, I did get it started. So I got it started. And then you want to hold this together. Either get somebody to hold it together and kind of work it in. So when you work it in, you know, you're kind of jiggling this around. See, I can't do it with one hand. So as soon as you start to jiggle it around, you'll grab these holes in there in between here. And then this rod will push right up through. But don't bend the rod. And then make sure it goes all the way up. And you'll see it right at the top. Then you take your nut. Just rest your nut right in that little hole. just like that. It's not going anywhere. And then when this is all the way up to the bottom, put your finger, one finger on there, and then your other hand, get your socket, and then just screw this up. Or screw this up right in there. As soon as that's all the way flat up against there. And make sure you put your finger on here, because you want that rod to touch that screw or that nut. And then that nut will secure itself, and you just keep screwing it tightly with this 7mm. And then that will be good. And you do that for the other side. So I'm going to pull it out, because I have to do this with two hands when I quit taping, videoing. Put it back together. So there you go. And of course the legs break. I don't have the microphone. That's gone. But one of the legs broke. You can actually make another leg, or you can make two legs in the back and then keep the two good legs in the front. Go to like, one of these AC Moores or whatever and try to get something. Or you could go to AC Moore and get like a clay form that dries quick, and then put one of your legs in the clay, and then put some more clay on top, and it'll be like a mold. And as soon as that dry, you peel it apart, and then you take your leg out of the mold, and then put the two pieces together, and then you can pour like liquid plastic inside. And as soon as that dry, you have a brand new leg that looks just like the other one.